What makes a hero? Are they forged from iron?
I just finally know what I have to do.
Built by science? Handed to us from the heavens? Or is it magic?
It felt very magical to us. I think we knew we were making something special, but Marvel didn't expect Iron Man 1 to become what it was and this massive hit and the beginning of a franchise.
I was really excited because of what I'd seen Marvel do with Iron Man.
I'm always amazed when anything happens in Hollywood that's difficult that works.
Obviously, there's been a bunch of superhero movies that don't work. There's got to be something Marvel is doing right.
One studio set out to prove they could take their passion from page to screen.
There's a bit of osmosis that comes from being part of the Marvel family, where you start thinking about the company and the kind of legacy as a whole.
Everyone involved came at it, I think, for the right reasons. This company loves making these films, which I think why they're so successful so far.
People get their money's worth. They come with an expectation that's most times exceeded, and it's very difficult to do that.
So how do they do it? How does a studio make a film that fickle comic fans are actually proud of? Well, they listen.
Mostly studios try to guess what people want to see, and they try to follow trends, and that only goes for so long. But this is a whole other way of playing the game, and it's very exciting, I think.
And I really think it just comes down to the people. It's some people just know movies.
And for those of us who love movies, one studio brings us the mightiest heroes of all.
Here's the trick in Marvel. We want to stay true to the characters, we want to stay true to the books, but we also don't want to be afraid to take risks occasionally with our characters. We believe that our stories are so strong and our characters are so strong that we can take chances. If you talk to Marvel fans, ask them what their favorite moments are over the years in the comics, you will almost always get a character moment out of them. Very rarely is it a pure action splash page moment.
The reason Marvel's characters work so often is that they are so much like us. It's still the kid who gets beat up in class and wants the girl who's above his league and can't get the job and can't catch a break. And I think when you open up the books of Marvel, you relate to these people.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I can do this all day.
There is a wish fulfillment aspect to, wow, I would love to be a billionaire who could travel the world and do whatever he wants, or I would love to be a super soldier. But at the same time, those people have my problems, and they deal with the same things I deal with, and that's why these characters endure. It's also a crucial piece to the Marvel saga at large.
The way Thor deals with his father and his brothers, the way Iron Man deals with his girl Friday, the way Captain America is drawn to want to fight for his country, and the patriotism that he has. We have real people, real characters that just happen to be superheroes. And I think that's what makes it enjoyable.
Everybody worldwide can relate to that in one level or another. It's human nature.
I grew up with Marvel Comics around the house, and my brother had Spider-Man underoos and Spider-Man sheets and Spider-Man everything.
Makes for, I think, a product that is really attractive and charming and fun.
What's important about the Marvel characters is that there are many different incarnations. There's the comics, there's the cartoon series, there are video games, there are movies, some of them have had live-action television series, but the core of the characters usually remains the same, right? Always from what started in the comics. That's where it all begins.
The company we now know as Marvel was first known as Timely Publications and originated from the minds of Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. Together, the two writers and artists gave birth to the first true superheroes.
Joe Simon and Jack Kirby putting a star in red, white, and blue on that hero, on that soldier, on that scrawny kid who yearns to be a part of the battle was brilliant. And that is where it all started.
We were doing very well there. We're on top of the world with Captain America, and then we had USA Comics. Martin Goodman was the publisher there, and he had a lot of relatives working there.
One of those relatives was a cousin named Stanley Lieber. Hired as an office assistant, he soon became much more. In a few short years, comic book fans from around the world would know him by his pseudonym, Stan Lee.
I often look back at the characters that came out of Stan Lee's imagination and all of his co-creators. Jack Kirby, Joe Simon, Steve Ditko, Bill Everett, many, many others. The early 60s in the famous Marvel bullpen, and think about the characters that came out of that. Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Thor. It's incredible. And all the adjectives that he uses to sell his books are true about him and about all of them in that period.
One of the reasons the Marvel characters have been so successful and have lasted so long is in creating them, we tried to give them personality. If you get somebody who can interest the public just because of his or her own personality, then you add the colorful element of a superpower, then you've got something really good.
At the age of just 19, Lee became the interim editor of the company, then known as Atlas Comics. But by the early 1960s, this company would also have a new name. With its continued success and its stable of superhero superstars, Marvel soon began looking to branch out beyond the publishing world. Characters like the Hulk and Spider-Man became part of Saturday morning cartoons and even feature films. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, who got his start with Marvel on the original X-Men film, had an idea.
My memory of Kevin was he was working for Lauren Schuler Donner at the time, and she kind of had him on set all the time, mostly because he was a big geek and a big X-Men fan, and we became friends and hit it off, and spent like a lot of our time just nerding out on all kinds of sci-fi, Star Trek, everything. And it was great. It was great to have him there because, you know, when you're in the insanity of making a movie and all the politics involved and the stress and the budget and the schedule, it's nice to have a guy around who cares about the creative as much as you do.
By the mid-2000s, Marvel began to rethink their strategy of how their characters were represented in feature films.
It was early days at Marvel Studios. Avi Arad was the head of the studio at the time, and Marvel Studios had existed. I'd been with the company for I want to say 5 years, working on the X-Men films, working on the Spider-Man films. There were ups and downs on all the various Marvel films at that point, but they were mainly ups, and they were mainly amazing learning experiences because we could see the way things worked that we wanted to emulate, the way we wanted to avoid in development, in choices, in the production. So we got to know all the writers, all the filmmakers. It got to a point that we were working hand in hand with the studio partners, bringing the filmmakers to the table, bringing writers to the table, working on it, but we never had the final say. At a certain point, as we were so heavily involved with the movies, the thought was, can we do it ourselves? And certainly a core team of us thought that we could.
It was Alan Fine from the beginning. His vision was instrumental in putting these films together.
As the company that created these beloved characters, Marvel believed they could bring new and exciting dimensions to them at theaters around the world. And under the banner of Marvel Studios, the company set out to reclaim some of their characters and produce their own feature films.
I started at Marvel in 2004 as an assistant, and David Maisel came up with this idea, this whole financing idea that we could get all the rights back to these things and put together a big slate, and we could finance it all as a slate. And as we were talking originally back in 2004 about what this slate could be, and there was this real realization as we're putting this book together of like, what characters do we have the rights to? Because that was the main question back then was, well, if we were going to make movies, what do we have the rights to still? We don't have the rights to Spider-Man, we don't have the rights to X-Men, we don't have the rights to Fantastic Four, to Daredevil, to Ghost Rider, Punisher. Well, we don't have the rights to any of that stuff. What do we have the rights to? We started to realize, well, we have the rights to Iron Man back. We never gave the rights to Captain America away. Universal's willing to let us make a Hulk movie if we pay for it, and we could use the Hulk in future movies. And we never gave the rights to Thor to anybody. So we have Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Hulk. We've always had Nick Fury.
Marvel historically was really the company that created continuity within comic books, where Spider-Man, if you were reading Spider-Man, you were reading the life of Peter Parker from one issue to the next. And when one particular Spider-Man story was over and the next one started, they were all done in sequence. The same can be said for our other characters too. You know, Tony Stark's moving through his life, and these lives are all moving in unison, and sometimes those books would connect. And when they connect, those were the coolest things ever, because those characters would team up, and sometimes they'd fight and then realize, hey, we're all on the same team, and then go fight the bad guy.
Knew about the Marvel Universe to some degree, reading about this universe and discovering this whole other world. And I think that was the joy about having so many sources of information, was there was constantly new things to inspire you. And books with pictures, who doesn't like that?
the sense that each individual installment, whether it be a film or whether it be an individual comic or a series of comics, is actually just one little brick in a larger mosaic that is the big picture of this entire world of fantasy where all this cool stuff happens and it's all going on and it can impact and bounce around back and forth.
Would it be possible to create a similar Marvel universe on film?
With the new studio setup, the way things work now, is there more of an opportunity for a crossover here and there with Marvel characters in a movie? So say somebody might show up in a Hulk movie down the road.
I think if you listen to the characters I named that we are working on currently, and you put them all together, there's no coincidence that may someday equal the Avengers. I think just having that possibility on the horizon is something that excites all of us.
Kevin had this really strong notion that we could bring the bigger Marvel universe all together.
The great thing is you can always peel the onion, right? The layers are so rich on every Marvel character, and the mythology is so deep that as long as there's that endpoint, I don't care if that endpoint is a comic or a cartoon or a pair of pajamas. It's the surface level of the onion, and you start peeling it back, and it can go deep. In the movies, we want it to be the same thing. You can watch the movie once, and there it is, surface level. Hopefully it's a great time. But you can keep going deeper and deeper and seeing more of the mythology and seeing more of the continuity.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe was about to start with a big bang.
We were tasked with doing 2 movies right off the bat. You're gonna make 2 movies for this summer, for summer 2008. What are they going to be? We chose Hulk and Iron Man because we believed in the content and the concept and the comic.
Co-created by Stan Lee and others in 1963, Iron Man first suited up for Marvel in the anthology comic Tales of Suspense. The story centers around billionaire playboy Tony Stark, who suffers a near-fatal injury during a kidnapping. To survive, Stark builds a suit of armor and uses it to protect the world as Iron Man.
What makes Tony Stark unique is really where he comes from and the fact that he is a self-made man. He doesn't have superpowers. His one great power is his mind, and his mind is what creates the Iron Man suit. And that Iron Man suit is what brings him from normal, everyday Tony Stark, and we say normal everyday, but the guy is like a multi-billionaire industrialist, to this incredible superhero.
That's the singular thing about Tony, is left to his own devices, desperate or not, better when he's desperate, he will manage to create something that no amount of resources would match.
And it's also his path from becoming that great inventor who's building weapons, which isn't necessarily the most heroic of professions, to building the Iron Man suit. It's that path in building the Iron Man suit that is his arc of redemption, where he discovers that what he was building in the past wasn't really serving society, but building Iron Man can serve society. So he takes this sort of hero's quest, and in becoming Iron Man, really becomes a better person at the end of the day.
Part of the appeal of Tony Stark is the damage, and he's a complicated figure, and I think he kind of represents the dark side in all of us and that hope that we all overcome our own demons, and he's sort of a personification of that.
While comic book fans were well aware of the adventures of Iron Man, many in the general public had yet to discover the character. To some, Iron Man was simply a B character, not nearly on the level of some of the company's more popular creations like Spider-Man and the Hulk. The company would be taking a huge risk launching their new studio with this little-known character.
The secret to the Marvel comics, of course, is character. I don't believe in the tiers. I don't believe in A tier, B tier, C tier. It's up to us to make them all A. Because in the comics, they are. When you have a character that's been around 45 years, 50 years, that's an A character, that's an A franchise. And then it's our burden to convince the rest of the movie-going public that that's the case.
Iron Man was a property that had been kicking around town. It had been at New Line. They hadn't really had a way into making it. And I think everyone at Marvel kind of knew that there was something cool about this character, Iron Man. Back then, I literally spent, 6 months reading every Iron Man comic book, reading through all of them, pouring through all of them, just trying to put together packets of material. And we went out to, I think, about 30 writers, and they all passed. No one was interested in writing this movie. Marvel Studios is doing their own thing. They've never made a movie before. No takers. So we just kept sending out this packet in a letter. Iron Man's a character, 60 years of history, one of the mainstays of Marvel, pass. pass, pass, pass. And we were like, what are we gonna do? And so we were really excited once people actually started coming in for pitches. And then of course, as we shaped the film, even when we were trying to get rewrites during production on the first movie, we would go out to writers and they would pass. Nope, not interested in rewriting this thing. And we were like, we'll pay you, just come rewrite it. And everyone kept saying no. And since then, I've met with some of the writers that passed on it, and they all feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I passed on Iron Man. Who knew it was gonna be such a cool thing? But whatever it was, that energy of how the first film came together and how we were doing it from the ground floor up, all in-house at Marvel, it's really special. But I think as we started digging through that material, it became apparent that there was a hero there that was kind of unlike all the others.
With Marvel executives on board to make Iron Man their first feature, they now had the daunting task of finding the right components to make the superhero fly at the box office. Perhaps the biggest question was, who was going to direct the film? For that, Marvel decided to gamble and go with an unlikely choice.
All the action's going all along this line. There are 2 burning hulks of cars here, a lot of smoke, a lot of stuff crossing, very disorienting. We're on the road, the road's here, you're in the sand when you get out. Wherever you end up, that's where the thing's gonna go off and explode.
By the first half of the decade, Jon Favreau was best known as an actor in independent films like Swingers. While he had directed some successful films, making a big-budgeted action film was not part of his resume. What he did have, though, was something Marvel believed was key in bringing Iron Man to the screen.
When it came to looking for a director on Iron Man, Jon was one that rose to the top very quickly. Favreau is an amazing filmmaker and his amazing intellect. So the meetings were great. He had ideas that were awesome right off the bat. My memory of this is that it was one of those early meetings where he said, you should start with the accident. You should start with the convoy attack. And then flash back and lead back up to it. That just is the one that pops to my head as one of the very first things I ever heard him say about the movie. That is right there.
Jon is just, he's such a great actor, and he's such a great actor's director, and he's brought a real sense of story and truth and humanity.
The real trick is, how do you make something that's ridiculous in the comic book actually plausible in our film? And how far can we stretch it before we break the tone?
3, 2, 1, go!
What aspect of the Marvel books we play up, in the sense of humor, the type of casting choices we make. My job as a director has been to know what's appropriate for the movie.
Finding the right actor to play the complex superhero character was crucial. It was a role that could not only make or break the film, but also an entire franchise and a film studio.
Mr. Stark, you have been described by some as a Da Vinci for our time. What do you have to say about that?
Da Vinci, ridiculous. I don't paint.
Oh, and what do you have to say about the fact that Stark Weapons is responsible for millions of deaths since World War II?
Oh boy, let me guess. Berkeley? Ms.
Miss Summer, and it's Brown.
Okay. Well, listen, Ms. Brown, it's an imperfect world, but it's the only one we've got. I assure you the day weapons are no longer needed to keep the peace, I'll happily transist to manufacturing bricks and beams for baby hospitals, making hemp pants and the like, but until that time, can I get you a drink?
Ever since Robert was announced as being Iron Man, people really dug the idea.
Nice to see you, Toby. Okay. Thanks for dressing up. He's a hell of a guy.
We knew Robert Downey Jr. is gold. People have loved him for so long, and they all want him to do well.
I had always wanted to work with Robert. It had been kind of one of my lifelong ambitions. Robert is just utterly brilliant and completely gifted and totally wacky and his own amazing creation.
The reason that I'm playing Tony Stark, the reason that I'm involved in Iron Man, the reason that I'm so excited is I'm crazy about movies. That's why I wanted to become an actor. Superheroes who manufacture weapons and then build one that they wear and use, to me, is just a complete nerdgasm. Do a weather and ATC check, start listening in on ground control.
Sir, there are still terabytes of calculations needed before an actual flight is achieved.
Jarvis, sometimes you gotta run before you can walk. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I was bitching about it. I was saying, dude, where's my franchise? I had a feeling that given the opportunity, I could at least do as well as all the other schmucks. And here we are. It was one of those situations where the material and the actor
married well. And probably my single largest contribution to Iron Man was making that connection and making that happen.
I don't think we realized how much heart and how much humor there was going to be in this franchise until we cast Robert. I remember the original draft of the script wasn't funny. One of the real transformative moments on the first movie was the speech that Tony gives at the weapons demonstration.
They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. For your consideration, the Jericho.
Robert brought such an insight into that scene of, I'm arrogant, I'm charismatic, I'm kind of a jerk, I'm impossible, but you like me.
I'll be throwing one of these in with every purchase of 500 million or more. It's a piece.
And whatever that was that he brought together in that scene, that's when we all started to realize that this franchise could be funny and could really have heart, because he was so sympathetic.
Where to, sir?
Take us to the hospital,
No.
please, Happy. No, Tony,
No
you
is a
have to go to
complete
the
answer.
hospital.
I don't
the
have
doctor
to do
has
anything.
look
I've
at
been in
you.
captivity for 3 months. There are 2 things I want to do. I want an American cheeseburger. And the other
That's enough of that.
is not what you think. I want you to call for a press conference now.
Call for a press conference?
Yeah, Hogan,
what on
drive.
earth for?
Cheeseburger first.
Playing someone who's conflicted for the right reasons, and conflicted and doesn't see the potential that they have, and then starts living in accordance with a code is a great old-fashioned theme. But I hadn't ever imagined that I could be involved in something that demonstrates it on the scale.
With Robert Downey set in the lead role, other actors enthusiastically joined the cast.
The other cast fell into place very easily because there's a lot of fans. There's a lot of fans. And people really seem to like the idea of working with him and I together.
We're a hell of a team. Maybe you can't tell just from this snippet, but boy, does it work.
You just look at the footage, speaks.
People who wouldn't normally do that kind of movie were reaching out. It's like whoever we wanted, we were getting.
Hey, Potts.
Making the first Iron Man was one of the most special experiences I've ever had, and I think John and Robert and I had like a chemistry and a friendship together and a creative freedom.
People say, well, the suit's the real star and the thing, and it is his fetish. And it is the thing that when I am reading any incarnation of the Iron Man comics, I can't wait. I'm happy to see he and Rhodey futzing around and all this, but I'm like, when's he gonna suit up and kick some ass? Because that's where the cool graphics are, that's where the dialogue gets very choppy and Sergeant Rock and all that stuff that I adore.
That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Not bad, huh? Let's do it.
For Downey, one of the biggest challenges of the role was donning the costume and its heavy weight. The iconic suit was designed by a group of Marvel artists, including Ryan Meinerding.
Ryan Meinerding, who is one of the most talented concept artists in the entire industry, we thought he could do something cool with Iron Man.
I would get packets from Marvel saying, like, these are the basic breakdowns of different artists, and, use them as inspiration as you see fit, at least for that initial concept phase. It becomes difficult to figure out how to incorporate more of the comic book design themes because a lot of them are really based around human anatomy and not so much about the mechanical.
And you know what? Omni Magazine 20 years ago is reality today. And Popular Mechanics now has people diving in what looks like an Iron Man suit from the ionosphere into a safe landing on Earth. We're really verging on this time where science and mythology are inseparable.
The guys that were most responsible for the Mark III design on the first movie were Adi Granov and Phil Saunders. And they did go through a pretty lengthy design process to sort of find something that felt like Iron Man and felt like it could be believable and felt real. Adding that sense of realism is really what drives Iron Man. And I think that that's probably the most profound design theme in most of the stuff we do.
One of the design challenges was designing a practical suit that could actually be worn.
Shooting practical elements seems big and expensive, but it's actually less expensive than the type of digital work that would be required. There's a lot to be learned and gained from incorporating practical elements even to the digital work. So we just created that work in our environment.
The reality of trying to cram somebody into that thing and make it work, understanding like how how easy it would be just to say, oh, in the digital world, they'll just cheat that shoulder outward and it'll make it look heroic. Sort of having that limitation to say they're going to have a practical suit definitely makes it more believable.
For suit construction, Marvel enlisted veteran effects company Stan Winston Legacy Effects.
When we came on, there was an inherited Bible of looks, lots of different looks and lots of different things. The thing about a studio like ours, it's a core group of absolute comic book, I hate to use the word, let's call them fans. We're fans, but we truly are. And also, you fuse that with the love of art and anatomy and all of that, but you have to fuse both worlds. Everybody knew, like, it's got to be, what happens if this comic book proportions are brought to life? So that was the interesting challenge of getting the right proportion of the suit to the girth of the shoulders to the size of the head. And when we were modeling it, like, I kept forcing the issue, collectively we all did, but I kept forcing, like, make the head smaller, smaller, smaller. Make it as small as you possibly can. Make the legs as long as you possibly can. Then Robert Downey was cast when most of the model was kind of done. Then we had to scan him and kind of fit him in from the hips up because he had to operate the thing. So finally the maquette, like the one that you see behind, from the waist up, Robert Downey fits into that. But the other proportions are correct, and I think it was a really successful merge of that. And then I was looking at the printouts going, there's no human being on earth that's got broad shoulders and little itty bitty hips and a head about this big. But we found some really great and talented stuntmen performers that were very athletic, very fit, and they fit lengthwise into the suit as well as the upper proportions. And the audition basically was, we must have seen 25 guys come in. The audition was, can you fit this helmet on? Because if you can't fit the helmet, you can't be in Iron Man suit. So it was kind of like Cinderella's slipper, really. It was like, if you don't get if you can't come out of the helmet, so, there were guys just trying so hard, like, I can do it.
The first half hour of being in the Iron Man suit is like the coolest Halloween you ever had. You're getting ready and you just catch a glimpse and you go, that's right. Grandma'd be proud. And then because it's not really designed for guys to wear, you only have so much energy, you only have so much charge in your batteries every day. So it was tough, but yeah, it's a badass suit.
Some aspects of it are amazingly ergonomic, and others, though designed by the greatest team in history, are less.
She's among the greatest props I've ever seen. The best translation of a character from a comic to a film that we've had on any of our films. And when you see your actor and your stuntman walking around in that suit, Iron Man is there.
What can we do today?
Voila! That was probably one of the coolest moments for me, like working on movies, because it was literally like Iron Man was standing right there.
Good luck keeping up.
It's Iron Man.
Shane Mahan and all the Stan Winston guys are geniuses, literally. Not just how can you execute this thing that we said wasn't possible, but how can you adjust it when we realize on the day we want to do something completely different? Or how, in the moment, can you make something work that we just decided there's no way this will ever work, even though it worked 5 minutes ago.
Good luck keeping up. You don't want one of these. Works every time.
Once we designed that and built that, then the digital companies could take that physical, full-size piece, scan that one, and use that as the basis for their computer model. And then they were able to, obviously tweak it a little bit more, like take the waist in, just subtle little changes, maybe make the arms a little longer, but you really are hard-pressed to determine which one is which.
Spearheading the visual effects process was Victoria Alonso.
The way that Jon Favreau likes to work is that if I can't tell that you've done your job, you've done a great job, because the more real that we make it, the more grounded that our superhero is. And one of the key issues in making Iron Man successful is to have made him quite grounded.
I think it's the most successful of it is what ILM did in some of those sequences, where you really think it's a suit.
I had a great idea, Tony, but my suit is more advanced in every way.
How'd you solve the icing problem?
Icing problem?
The suit is about 1,000 pounds. Robert is quite quick on his feet, and if you keep that lightness with the suit, I think you lose the reality of 1,000 pounds of metal on you, and that determines very much the kind of assertiveness that you walk on. And even though people try to mimic it, it's tricky.
Between us and visual effects, we really came to the conclusion of physical start, physical end with a soft, gooey texture of digital in between, maybe with a few more shots. It's peppered throughout. It's pretty nicely peppered from that's real, that's digital, that's real and digital. It's like you can't quite tell, and I think if you have to work that way so that you fool the audience's eyes.
It's imperative that we keep that relationship with Legacy, because so much of what they can give us, and you can actually put onto a body, so much of it becomes alive when Robert Downey Jr. puts it on. And we learn so much about the character that he inhabits, that if you don't have that, as good as we are in the computer graphics world, the gift of the actors, what they bring to the table, is something that we almost get there, but we don't quite get there. Still try to keep it grounded and as real as you can, because that's the world we live in. The Marvel Universe portion of it, of Iron Man, is very grounded in today's world.
Long before they knew how Iron Man would even perform at the box office, the company made a bold business decision. They would shoot 2 films simultaneously. So, with Favreau and Downey working on the first Iron Man film in Los Angeles, the Marvel team set up shop in Toronto to begin their next superhero production.
It's always intense making 2 movies. There was more pressure because if The Incredible Hulk didn't work, Marvel Studios wasn't going to work.
Co-created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, The Incredible Hulk first roared into the Marvel Universe in 1962. And like most Marvel characters, this superhero was different, right down to the color of his skin.
I thought I'd give him gray skin, but the printer had trouble with the color gray. On some pages it was dark gray, on some pages light gray, on some pages it was black or white. So I thought of another color that wasn't being used at the moment. I said, we'll make him green. And the printer had no trouble printing green, so that's the reason he became the Jolly Green Giant.
The Hulk's story centers on his alter ego, Dr. Bruce Banner, who'd been exposed to a high dose of gamma rays. When angered, Banner transforms into a powerful and out-of-control creature.
Hulk smash!
It's just one of those characters that's just so pervasive in the society, and that everyone knows, you know, whether you're 90 or 90, that you get Bruce Banner angry, he's going to turn green, he's going to turn to the Hulk.
Banner, he's a nice guy that's troubled. He didn't want to end up in this situation. He's got a gigantic rage monster living inside of him at every turn that could pop out any second. He's a rich, great character.
In bringing the Hulk to modern-day movie audiences, Marvel wasn't afraid to adopt what worked in the past.
We wanted to go back to the broader sense from the comics and really the fugitive-type manhunt structure of the television series, which was just brilliant. Was a great structure for the Hulk. We wanted to get to that, and we wanted to, frankly, have more fun and have more action this time around, and really deliver the Hulk that we thought audiences wanted to see.
For director Louis Leterrier, the Incredible Hulk film presented an opportunity to explore the intricate details of the lead character's search for inner peace.
He just had such the right attitude and such the right idea of fun, of smashing, but at the same time, he could direct actors, and he could tell performances and tell a more emotional story. And with the Marvel films, they're never going to be primarily about action or about effects. A large portion of it will be about that, but it has to be about the characters. The characters can't get lost within the spectacle.
When we find Bruce Banner at first, he's had a few Hulk outs, but they weren't controlled, and he didn't remember what happened. But like, slowly throughout our movie, he's going to learn that maybe that monster within him is something that can do good.
That's good, yeah. Great. So it's quite nice if you keep on moving because we're on the slider. You're real tight on me then, right? Yeah.
Louis thinks big. I mean, he really does think big. He talked about using handheld cameras a lot. He talked about the visual experience be dirty, and by that he meant not always, perfectly composed. That there's a sense of chaos and horror film aspect to it, and I liked that a lot.
Hulk itself, or himself, the creature, performs a lot of heroics. He's never looking for trouble, on the contrary. He's kind of naive and childish, very childlike. But society is egging it on, and he's trying to stay away so he doesn't harm anybody.
You don't have to do this, please. This is insane.
Betty, I've got to try.
We wanted to come up with a design of the Hulk that stood up to sort of the high-def screens that most people are going to be looking at this film on nowadays, and that was inspired directly from his most famous incarnations in the comic books.
I realized that it's no easy job to be the Hulk.
Starting with the university sequence, it's the first time that Betty Ross comes face-to-face with the Hulk. And in that scene, Liv had to walk across an empty field looking at a stuntman with a giant backpack that went up to a two-dimensional drawing of Hulk's face. You're not going to mistake that for Hulk. You're going to mistake that for a stuntman with a big rig on his back with a two-dimensional picture of Hulk. It is a tough job to be able to pull that off.
We were trying to get a whole shot for like the university sequence. Throwing footballs at each other, running around, screaming, our weapons advisor shooting guns in the air, just to get them to react a little bit. Nightmares.
What do you think? Can we roll on this, guys?
It was definitely a work in progress from the beginning to the end of how to create something for us all to play with and respond to, you know?
Turn around, and when you turn around, that's when you get in your full height, that's when you spread it open, okay?
Originally, I was going to be being carried by an actual, like, mechanical arm. And then at one point, it was going to be a huge man. And then they came up with this brilliant idea of having the two guys, because the Hulk's width is rather large.
By putting all of the pieces together, a terrific story, a wonderful director, a really compelling cast, you're able to create a film that's on everyone's must-see list.
I was very proud of that movie. It fits in a little bit more with the Hulk from the comics, or the Hulk from the TV series, with a Hulk that we could envision sharing a screen with some of our other heroes down the line.
After 2 ambitious productions, Marvel was ready to present a peek of Iron Man at San Diego Comic-Con in 2007. The mission was simple: win these fans over, and you're on your way to success. If the footage failed to engage them, the film may never recover from the bad publicity. The pressure was on.
We drove down to Comic-Con. We were very excited, had some good footage to show. We believed in our movie, and we opened up the front page of a local newspaper, and it says, "Marvel rolls out the B-team," which was a little deflating at that time.
We wanted to show people that their superhero was in good hands, and we took it seriously, and we were paying attention to the source material.
All right, who's ready for Iron Man?
The film itself wasn't finished, was beginning to take shape. But it really came down to John and I, our editor, our other producers, sitting in the edit room going, let's look at what, let's look at the scenes that we have. What should we lead off with? A moment of him suiting up, an image of the gauntlet, an image of him flying through the sky. And we landed on what we knew would become the core essence of the movie, which was not the suit. It was Tony Stark. It was Robert Downey presenting himself to the military and his weapons presentation. And I'll tell you, after that 4.5 minutes, and John walked off the stage, the crowd went crazy. I was there when Brian showed X-Men 2. I was there when Sam presented all 3 Spidey films. I've been in that giant hall when the crowd goes crazy. Nothing came close to what that reaction was after Iron Man.
Should we play it one more time?
What? Okay, let's play it.
Let's do it. Can we see that one more time?
Now, later that day, the tide would start to turn, and people would start to be very curious about this little movie called Iron Man because of the great reaction that it had in that room. It started there. It started in that room.
Released on May 2nd, 2008, Iron Man would go on to be a smash hit. Marvel had struck gold, creating a film that captivated moviegoers from all walks of life.
The biggest compliment we could get on the first Iron Man film was, wow, I don't usually like movies like that, but I loved Iron Man. And what the people are really saying is, oh, it wasn't just explosions and special effects. I cared about the characters.
With the success of their first Iron Man film, Marvel had established itself as a major player in producing high-quality motion pictures. And as one of Marvel's most popular personalities, perhaps it shouldn't be surprising that the Incredible Hulk proved successful with critics and audiences alike. And for fans who stayed until after the credits, both films offered a glimpse of the ever-expanding Marvel Universe.
By the time we got done shooting Iron Man 1, we brought in Nick Fury, we brought in Sam Jackson for a cameo for an afternoon to say,
Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet.
When we contacted his people, we were like, we need him for half a day. And I think we did that half a day in the first picture on a Saturday. No one was supposed to know. We didn't even let him walk from his trailer to the set. We drove his car onto the stage, parked it next to the set. He got out, went right onto the set, did his thing, got back in the car, drove back to his trailer. We were so convinced that no one's ever gonna find out. It's gonna be such a secret. It is so on super duper lockdown, but it was so cool and such big news that by Monday, it was all over the place.
Who the hell are you? Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Huh. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
And that moment really was like, hey, we can actually bring this thing together. We can make this big universe happen, and people are gonna go crazy for it if we do it right.
Smell of stale beer and defeat. You know, I hate to say I told you so, General, but that super soldier program was put on ice for a reason. I've always felt that hardware was much more reliable.
Stark.
General, what if I told you we were putting a team together? Who's we?
So again, peeling back the onions, the layers of the Marvel Universe, is what all these movies are doing. And certainly Tony is going to be a big part of that through line. It opens the door to the rest of the Marvel Universe that we're going to explore in our subsequent movies.
In the spring of 2008, Marvel announced plans for production on Iron Man 2.
After you do a first film, and if it's been a hit, as you hope it will be, that's half the work right there. I mean, it really is, okay, we've hit the tone, we've hit the characterizations, people now know this character and like this character, and that gives you a lot of freedom to jump into what story you want to tell next.
At the conclusion of Iron Man, Tony Stark reveals himself as the shiny superhero, setting up an intriguing storyline for the movie's sequel.
I am Iron Man.
I think it was a very fresh thing to do at the end of the first movie to announce that he was Iron Man and to not do the secret identity thing. It was a very fresh take, and I think it allows for a whole world of possibilities that don't normally exist in this kind of a movie.
Part of the difficulty of these superhero movies is everything's been done. So how do you make it different? Not only from our first film, but from what everybody else is doing. There's only so many scenarios.
You'd imagine in some ways that the origin story complete, that the Iron Man franchise, there's no way to go but a rehash of all the exciting bits having occurred. And I thought, well, no, because we only scratched the surface of Ian Pepper, and I knew once Scarlet came on board for Black Widow, that was something.
There have been good sequels, there have been not so good sequels. And what we've learned, and we learned early on, is you can't just feel the pressure to add the new character, add this fan favorite, put in this new villain. You'll collapse very quickly under the weight of all your characters. So what we try to do now, what I think we've achieved in Iron Man 2, is only introduce the characters, the new characters, that will have an impact on your main characters. We've got that with the Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff.
Black Widow's character dates back to the 1960s and is one of the rare Marvel creations that has changed radically through the years.
When she was introduced, she was really a femme fatale. She literally wore like a widow's veil and a pillbox hat.
The Black Widow springs from the 60s spy genre. She's a Russian defector. She came out of a project called The Red Room, where she was taught to be the perfect Russian spy. And then she comes to the States and becomes a part of the superhero community here and rebels against, her Cold War masters of the past. And it's the perfect name for her because she's beautiful and she's deadly.
You have this temptress, shape-shifting female character, Black Widow, played exquisitely by Scarlett Johansson.
I loved the first movie so much, and so as soon as I heard that there was a possible part in the second installment, I was all over it. I was desperate to be a part of it.
Oh, wow. Very, very impressive individual. She's fluent in French.
Rule number 1, never take your eye off your opponent.
Oh my God!
Scarlett was just a dream, you know. She's so game. Natalie is so complex and kind of unreadable, and she had a really good time doing it.
Marvel and the filmmakers were quite pleased with Scarlett Johansson's film interpretation of the femme fatale.
Scarlett did an amazing job, not just in her performance, but in her training. I mean, she has some of the best moments in the entire movie.
Giving away the secrets here. I was certainly more than willing to be a part of the action, so to speak, and I wanted to really sell it. You know, I wanted to know what it feels like to, you know, to hurdle over giant bodyguards and, you know, do all kinds of flippy things.
She spent hours and hours and hours for months, by far the most dedicated actor when it came to the stunt work and the physical work. She really wanted to make the most of it. And as a result, we used her double very little.
I think I was, you know, really wanted to prove something to myself, but at the same time, I'm very sensitive when you see those action movies and, you know, it's like the back of somebody's head and then all of a sudden they give that one pose at the end and you're like, that was not, that was the lamest thing, you know. You want to see the actor risking their life, you know. It's part of what makes, what sells it, I think, as an audience member. And I, you know, like I said, I'm sensitive about that sort of thing, so I never would want to be that, you know, I wouldn't want to be perceived as like a wuss who couldn't do it, I guess.
You really believe that as she's moving through this this hallway full of these guards, that she's able to do her flips and turns and grabs. It was pretty inspired. And she learned a lot of it. She did wire work herself. And then it was about designing the costume.
I looked at every visual reference for Black Widow and talked to the producers, because they were obviously really, really interested in what it was going to become, and same with John. And so we did a rendering with her in the outfit. That was done on a computer, and the first one, it was not painstaking. The first illustration got the approval.
Final fitting.
Doesn't she look great?
What do you think? Questions, comments, concerns?
She weighed 170 pounds when I hired her. Look at what she got.
I don't think I've ever worn anything like it before. I mean, I'm certainly not like a deep sea diver, but I can imagine that it's sort of like a wetsuit. It's a, you know, one-piece kind of unitard of some sort, a sexy unitard. You know, the first time I tried it on, I mean, obviously it's been a lot of, you know, I've been really like training and trying to get fit for this costume and make it look just right. And, you know, it certainly, Mary Zofries has helped me in a lot of ways just by designing something that I think is both functional and looks really badass.
Tony Stark also unveiled a series of new suits in Iron Man 2.
You know, it's almost an unfair advantage we have at Marvel Studios because we've got all of the comics, and the best comic artists in the world have worked on our comics, going back 50 years and even today. So we have amazing inspiration to start from. We also have the best artists working in film today here on staff at Marvel Studios that work from production to production, and led by Ryan Meinerting.
To Mark III, it was such a successful design, and everyone sort of embraced it so much. It's difficult because the mandate was to sort of change it in enough ways that you could tell it was different, but not make it look radically different. One of the things that makes Iron Man interesting but also difficult is the fact that you have this really elaborate suit-up sequence. So realistically, the only place he can become Iron Man is back at the garage. The suitcase suit was sort of born out of wanting to make sure that if he's around the world, he could still be Iron Man and not have to travel back to Malibu and jump in the Iron Man suit. The realities of trying to actually have a suit come out of a suitcase have been somewhat challenging. We did a little bit of math, and the actual surface area that covers a body could actually fit into a case that's not much bigger than a briefcase.
The way this suitcase suit deploys, that's right out of the comics. You know, in the 60s, he would open up, it looked like a regular briefcase, he'd open it up, put on a glove, put on a boot, the gold would magically come over him, and he was in the Iron Man suit. We took that as our inspiration to put together the Mark V. Tony is always searching, is always tinkering, is always trying to uncover something. And we never want it to be just a purely technical challenge for him. It always links into, you know, it's hard to separate Tony from his tech. It's one. You know, in the first movie, we made it very clear that this is a metaphor for his heart. And we continue that metaphor I think, to great effect in the sequel, in the development of the Mark VI. And the big change is that triangle.
But for the Mark VI, Tony would have to get some help from a familiar face.
Sam Jackson has tremendous screen presence. So just the idea that we stuck him in the first one was a bit of a lark. And now, you know, much like when we said I Am Iron Man, some decisions that were made in the first one ended up determining our whole path in the second. And he makes a return appearance and hits Tony Stark when he's perhaps at his lowest point.
I knew that Sam Jackson was going to be a little more central, and I thought that was great.
It was my purpose to come in and actually give more or less a history of who Tony Stark's dad was and what his position in the Marvel Universe should be.
Clearly, you know my dad better than I did. As a matter of fact, I did. He was one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D.
What?
S.H.I.E.L.D. has its hands and fingers in everything as a peacekeeping force. If there's something mysterious going on in the world, S.H.I.E.L.D. is there.
Nick Fury is one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s top commanders. Since the 1960s, Fury's been an indispensable part of the Marvel Universe.
You know, you have this great grizzled war vet, Nick Fury, Sergeant Fury, who ends up running this international organization, peacekeeping organization.
This is a way of taking a character who you think might have been misplaced in the 60s and finding a place for him.
Nick is Nick. I mean, and you kind of take him for granted. I think the choices they made in the Ultimates was very much to make people pay attention to the book, pay attention to Marvel, and say, we're willing to play with our characters in a way that we think will make them more relatable now.
What if they were born 40 years later? And what if they were trying to create the Marvel Universe today? How would they envision it? How would it be different? So we created this whole new Marvel Universe that was based around different sciences and modern-day technology and modern-day attitudes of people. We sort of re-envisioned S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. became more of a militaristic force as opposed to just a peacekeeping force. Still international, but much more proactive in what it was that they were doing. Recreating Nick Fury as an African-American character, which we felt was something that we needed to do.
The movie version is very inspired by the Ultimates version with the help of Mr. Jackson, and he's proven to be very cooperative on the publishing side also.
When I was a kid, Nick Fury was a white guy running through the jungle with a whole bunch of other white guys. And then he was David Hasselhoff, and then all of a sudden I picked up a book one day and it's like, hey, that's me. Oh, wow. Hey, I'm Nick Fury. I look at comic books, I always see them as movies anyway. I have for a very long time. So all of a sudden it was like, well, I got this job. I don't have to audition. I don't have to do anything. I just got to wait on the green light the movie and I'm in. I was, you know, all in favor of it. Plus, you know, I've always liked, you know, Nick Fury. Even when he was a white guy, I liked him. You know, he was very cool.
Howard said the arc reactor was a stepping stone to something greater. He was about to kick off an energy race that was going to dwarf the arms race. He was on to something big, something so big that it was going to make the nuclear reactor look like a AAA battery.
Howard Stark is an integral figure in the Marvel Universe. He's kind of the godfather of the whole thing. You know, he worked on Captain America's super soldier program. He birthed Tony Stark. He was associates with Nick Fury. He's an important figure.
Tony, this is the key to the future. One day you'll figure this out. And when you do, you will change the world.
Although Howard Stark played an instrumental role in the events of Iron Man 2, his influence can also be seen throughout the Marvel Universe.
Howard Stark plays a big part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He even outfit Captain America with his iconic shield. If you look over his shoulder, a certain scene in the workshop of Iron Man 1, you do see what looks to be Captain America's shield, and you see that again in Iron Man 2.
What's this doing here?
The Marvel Universe is vast, with characters and storylines crossing over each other. But perhaps no other character has inhabited the Marvel Cinematic Universe more than Agent Coulson, played by actor Clark Gregg, first appearing in Iron Man 1.
Mr. Stark.
Yeah?
Agent Coulson.
Oh, yeah, the guy from the,
Strategic Homeland Intervention
right,
Enforcement and Logistics Division.
God, you need a new name for that.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Coulson, after his performance and the reaction to him, it was obvious that we were going to have him in Iron Man 2. He's the glue.
I had loved Iron Man, and then to get a call that they're putting him in Iron Man 2. Director Fury wants me in New Mexico.
Fantastic. Land of enchantment.
So I'm told.
Secret stuff.
Something like that. I turned to Kevin Feige and said, what's in New Mexico? And they're like, oh, Thor. Thor, you're in Thor. Did anyone tell you? Sir, we found it.
With Iron Man and the Hulk now firmly grounded in the cinematic universe, Marvel set its sights beyond the stars. In 1962, with Jack Kirby once again wielding his mighty pencil, Marvel hit the stands with a new superhero named Thor. Thor, though, wasn't entirely original. As a god of thunder, his origin could be traced back to the days of Vikings and Norse mythology.
We had done almost every type of hero, and I was thinking, what could we do that's different? And as far as I knew, there was no god who was a superhero taken from legend. So I thought to myself, it would be fun to do a Norse god. And I love adjectives, so I called the thing the Mighty Thor. That was the name of the book. And luckily, it caught on.
Throughout the years, Marvel artists and writers like Walt Simonson and J. Michael Straczynski expanded on Stan Lee's original vision of the legendary god.
When I began doing the book and began thinking about the Vikings and trying to do more mythological stuff and maybe more Viking stuff without trying to copy the myths exactly.
Walt Simonson's a very unique artist. He very much transformed the way that people looked at Thor, but more importantly, Asgardians, their armor, and the technology. JMS's run is influential in a different regard, as he mined different aspects of the character, brought it right down to earth.
There was a time in Greek mythology and Roman mythology when you would have the gods and the humans walking side by side. You can interact with them. They were part of our everyday lives. So the idea of rooting him in New Mexico and rooting him in the Earth seemed like a natural thing to do to sort of ground the character.
To create the world of Thor, both on planet Earth and above, Marvel needed a director that could mold these two fantastical stories together.
Aside from casting, the thing that Marvel does best is they pick the right directors for their projects.
For Thor, Marvel decided on Kenneth Branagh. Like Favreau, Branagh enjoyed a successful career as an actor before becoming a highly regarded director, helming celluloid versions of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing and Hamlet.
I think it can be daunting to any filmmaker to come into this process with a film like Thor, which has massive expectations, as all Marvel movies do. But the truth is, Ken is someone in his career who's faced many challenges.
It's an epic adventure, and I wanted to direct a film on that scale.
Tone of this opening is excellent. Okay, here we go. And action!
Ken was the only one who came in with the real vision. He was just electrifying when he talked about how big and the sprawling nature, and how when he was a kid, this was the only American comic book he read and he loved. Ken got it. He knew what Thor could be in its grandest.
Just as director Jon Favreau needed Robert Downey Jr. for Iron Man, Branagh required a special leading man for his film, an actor that could embody not only the physical traits of the character, but also display a wide range of emotions.
The great thing about Marvel is that you always have a guidebook, and they'd say 6'6", and you know, he's this many pounds, and he wears this many things, he has these powers. And then we have our script, and we know what we want there, which is a very, very complex and passionate individual.
There are a lot of ways to go with Thor, but we knew early on that we didn't want to just cast a bodybuilder or just cast a wrestler. And we decided that we were going to go for just the best actor who fits the role, whether anybody'd heard of them or not. We have the luxury that our stories are so appealing and that the comics are so popular that kind of the character is the marquee name. There's not the pressure to say, gosh, you need to get a movie star in this part or you won't be able to make the movie.
We waited until we felt in our bones we'd got exactly the right person for this version of Thor, and Chris Hemsworth is that.
Hemsworth, a relatively unknown actor from Australia, blew filmmakers away with his Thor audition.
For this film to work, you gotta love our hero. You gotta just be behind him. And Chris does humor and sorrow, strength in such an honest way. And I've never seen someone throw themselves at work like that before.
He's worked really hard to make himself sort of that godly physique.
He can deliver these lines, which are very grand, in a way that you believe.
I am Thor, Odin's son.
We had to push him to really slice the ham sometimes in a way that Thor thought was being impressive, because it was part of the very pleasing arc from a thoughtless man to a thoughtful man.
Oh, they brought the big boy in. Nice.
I knew who Thor was and knew about the Marvel Universe to some degree. So that was the exciting thing about getting the part.
Okay. Well, what if it's all the way out? And
lower as well. So just try lower. See if we. Is that okay?
Whether you're playing a god or a human or whatever, you make it real and relatable. And that was the smart thing about this story. The backdrop was a film about gods, but it was about, human beings.
Brother, whatever I have done to wrong you, I am truly sorry. But these people are innocent. Taking their lives will gain you nothing. So take mine and end this.
In the pivotal role of Thor's mischievous brother Loki, Branagh cast actor Tom Hiddleston.
But it would just be in those moments, the dramatic moments. You get there. Yeah. Just give me one look there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anytime.
Loki is the guy who causes trouble. He causes trouble in the palaces of the gods and therefore mortals on Earth in that time. And he's got a slightly unhinged nature.
Loki, this is madness.
Is it madness? Is it?
It's a very important part because Loki is, and we hope will become, one of the biggest villains in the Marvel Universe across many, many films.
It's about ancient feuds, sibling rivalries, like the best kind of cross-genre sort of movie. For me, anyway, it was an easy yes.
One of the first designs Branagh wanted to explore was that of Thor's almighty hammer.
The first challenge with the hammer is to work out how to pronounce it, which is Mjolnir in our movie at the moment. Until somebody corrects me, I'm sure they will. Mjolnir, the hammer, this awesome weapon for Thor.
Again, the team turned to Ryan Meinerding, and this time with artist Charlie Wen for inspiration.
I think every time I drew Thor, almost, I did a hammer. Charlie had done a lot of variations. He did probably like 60 or 70 different variations at the very beginning of the project.
I still like the wrapping,
Yes,
because it's
yeah.
very Norse.
Yeah. They paid a lot of attention to paying homage to that Viking era, which is, all the Norse mythology that Thor is based on.
There is significance to everything we've done on the hammer. There are runes on the top of the hammer. Sort of went back and forth and decided what needed to be on this hammer because there's a lore involved that you don't sway from in certain areas, and this is one of them.
Whosoever holds of this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Norse mythology is definitely in there, but at the same time, it goes back to Kirby. So trying to fit those together, I think that's kind of where we started. I think that's also where Ken was like, he does want to get Kirby in there and not completely lose the Norse element.
It's Excalibur, it's the sword in the stone. It has to have that power. When we see it, boy, you're going to know it.
The film is constantly contrasting. It has a beautiful element about it, from Asgard to Earth, and then from gods in these costumes to Earth people, and the human beings. And with the fight sequences, you have big dramatic flying, and stunts and magic and all sorts of things, and then hand-to-hand combat, a bunch of guys beating the hell out of each other.
The challenge is really this combination of the spectacular visual and physical world of Asgard, the world of the gods, with the world of contemporary Earth.
Bo Welch, a production designer, did an amazing job.
He had a wonderful sense of unique vision, but his source material was always present. He just pushed it to its height, and that's what Asgard was going to need, and Jotunheim, and even Earth.
The challenge was other worlds, multiple dimensions. When you sit down and study all the various runs of the comics, they're wildly different from one run to the next, so your visual cues are all over the place. I've got 1 foot in Jack Kirby land, who generated, I think, the iconic imagery of Thor. I've got 1 foot in Norse mythology, and I've got 1 foot in beautiful, perfect, modern, Zen-like architecture, so that there's room for these elaborate characters and costumes to breathe.
This film didn't have a whole lot of green screen. They built these incredible, huge sets.
I came here and walked around the sets, and I thought, well, that's it. I don't have to do much. I just show up and put on the armor and let it happen.
I walked into that set and I thought, this costume with these horns and the spear in this throne, in this room, you've got your shot.
You can bring your urgent matter to me. Your king.
There's a lot of restraint in Asgard. so that these very elaborate costumes and bigger than life, almost godlike characters have room around them and the focus is on them.
Marvel's internal visual development department worked closely with costume designer Alex Byrne to make these larger-than-life costumes a reality.
One of the things that I enjoy doing and working on these projects is being sort of a middle ground between what the comics is and trying to take it into an illustrated realm that adds a little bit more reality to it, and then having the costume designer have that as a basis for them to work from to actually bring it into reality.
Whether you believe in Thor's personal charisma, his character journey, you've got to give him an intention. It can't just be sort of swash and buckle. It can't be off for Asgard. It can't be a sort of empty hurrah. This applies to cape. This applies to helmet. It applies to discs. You have to ask why. Okay, so why does he need the cape? Can it tell us a story about his position? Does it help him move better or worse? Does it give a visual signal to other characters? The helmet, or what's it used for? Is it ceremonial? Is it aggressive? Always find a why. And so Alex Byrne was great at doing that.
I have to say we have a great team of actors because the clothes are not easy. They do not take 5 minutes to put on.
It's about an hour in the costume. It's just layers and bits and pieces. And in the first couple of weeks, we were pouring sweat and dying in these things. Then they came up with these cooling vests, which I think the race car drivers wear, which basically a little vest with pipes that run sort of cold water through and can cool you down.
I haven't quite counted how many pieces it takes to get this thing on, but it's an incredible, incredible piece of work. I mean, it makes you stand up straight. You know, there's no sitting around in jeans and a t-shirt ordering a Frappuccino in this costume.
The challenge is bring visuals to the screen that people haven't seen before. At the same time, giving it the Marvel aesthetic of the wish fulfillment, of that relatable hero, of a journey of redemption.
It's hard with a big action story to really hope that you could claim original or unique images, but I think that the fabric of Thor provides them, and I think that we've been brave enough to meet that challenge and visually to really enjoy the scale and the scope. That was exciting.
With Thor, yet another hit for the fans, Marvel wasted no time introducing their next character to grace the screen. This time, it was the most important Avenger of all, the first Avenger. Captain America first burst onto the scene in 1941 and was a patriotic reaction to the events surrounding World War II.
Adolf Hitler was there, so I figured, well, he's a live one on his own brutal way. He'll be the villain and gets himself a patriotic guy to be his foil. So we designed Captain America.
You know, the message was loud and clear. It showed Cap right on the cover, punching Hitler in the jaw. So there was nothing unclear about the message of the comic book.
Given his long-running success in the comics, the character's story seemed a natural for the big screen. And finally, in June 2010, comic fans and movie audiences got the words they were waiting to hear. Marvel's Captain America film was in production.
Whether it's building a metal suit, or exposed to gamma rays, or coming from another world called Asgard, the notion of a superpowered human started with Steve Rogers, Captain America.
Keeping a watchful eye over the Captain's legacy was director Joe Johnston.
Yes, exactly. If you open the compass and set it down, Chris, then we sort of go in a map, and you close it, realize that her picture's on camera. Okay. Close it. No work.
Johnston first worked as an effects artist on such iconic films as Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. His success on these classic pictures propelled him into the director's chair for such respected films as The Rocketeer and October Sky.
He's made a broad range of movies, but one thing that they all have in common is they have a big heart. There's usually a very personal and emotional story at the core of it. And of all the characters in the Marvel Universe, if there's ever a film that we need a filmmaker who can tell the story of someone with a big heart, it's Captain America.
I wanted to make Captain America because he is not really a superhero. He's the kid next door who has this process performed on him, and he becomes the world's greatest athlete.
Like the other Marvel films before it, Captain America's success hinged on finding an actor that embodied the special traits of the famous character.
I went and met with Joe and Kevin, and
And Steven and they sat me down and gave a really good pitch of who this character was. He's a good man and an honest man, a noble man, and as a result of those, virtues, he's given this gift, and he's able to kind of balance this new life he has with his old set of morals.
Do you want to kill Nazis?
Is this a test?
Yes.
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
Well, there are already so many big men fighting this war. Maybe what we need now is a little guy, huh?
Marvel was confronted with a challenge: how to turn Chris Evans into a skinny Steve Rogers.
We knew that the movie wouldn't work if you didn't buy Skinny Steve at the top. We're going to spend the whole first act with a scrawny version of Steve Rogers before he gets chosen for the program and undergoes the procedure that turns him into Captain America. And if that looked fake, if that didn't feel right, you would lose it entirely.
Knowing what we wanted Chris to look like when he came out of the pod, fully transformed, we knew that he had to start working out right away. And he spent probably 3 months getting into that shape. We also knew that for the entire first act of the film, he had to look like he weighed 100 pounds and was 5'7". Obviously, once he started working out, there's no going back.
Steve Rogers is supposed to be 98 pounds. He's very tiny. And then when he turns into Captain America, Chris Evans looks pretty remarkable with how he worked out and where he took his body to. So that's a tough one that we've had to do a lot of reference shooting. There's always a balance of trying to see, okay, what will work and what won't.
We sat down at the very beginning and we said, well, it's not really a visual effects movie, is it? Like, nah, it's just a movie. It's a movie. It's a buddy pick and it's a superhero, but he doesn't really have that many superpowers. He jumps a bit, he's stronger, but it's not really many visual effects. And then you turn around and we're probably going to be, 12, 13, 1,400 shots, taking the original photography of Chris Evans, thinning him down, and just by frame, painstakingly reshaping his entire body for the first third of the movie.
We discussed all sorts of things. Are they different actors? No. Well, do you do a Tom Hanks Castaway thing? Well, our schedule wouldn't allow time for Chris to get that skinny and bulk back up again. So we started looking at a number of effects processes to get it done. All CG came up. We just didn't feel it was there. It wasn't right, and there was enough of that creepy factor that you would never be able to fall in love with it. And the goal was to make the audience fall in love with the character before he gets any muscles, before he puts on the costume, before he holds the shield. And in early meetings we had with Chris Evans, it was very important to him and it was important to us that it be him, that it be his performance, that entire section of the film.
I think if you get to know who Steve Rogers is before he becomes Captain America, that's what will make for a good character, that's what will make a good movie.
We did a few proof of concept tests, and I remember showing a section of the film, early rough cut footage of the rebirth scene, where there were a few shots of Chris skinny, gets onto a table, goes into the pod opens up, reveals the muscles, and the people I was showing to, how did you add those muscles? That was amazing. What's that effect? How'd you add those muscles? And I went, that's not the effect. The effect is the skinny version. They go, really? That is kind of when we all looked at each other and went, it's gonna work.
How'd you feel?
Taller. As much as possible is Chris basically shrunk. When that didn't work, for technical reasons, we photographed a body double, what we call a Skinny Steve, an English guy named Leander Dini.
Chris is of a kind of heroic build, and he needs to be a scrawny loser. That's where I come in. He'll decide how he wants to do the scene, and I'll watch him do it 4 or 5 times, and then I do that and try and get an exact copy.
And cut. Good.
You do one with Chris, you do one with a double, you do one with a clean plate. Sometimes we do one with Chris and slide a green screen in behind him. Sometimes we do one with the double and put tracking markers on his face. Frankly, because we wanted to give the effects houses as much information as they needed, because we knew the process wouldn't be easy, and we knew that from shot to shot they'd have to vary their technique. So we essentially covered every technique possible to give them all the ammunition they need.
You still recognize that is Chris Evans, and yet it's unfathomable that is half the man that he really ends up being in the movie.
What happened to you?
I joined the army.
Marvel was now faced with the daunting task of creating Captain America's iconic suit.
One of the biggest problems that we'll have as concept artists is that we're working in sort of a vacuum of how do we make this guy look as great as possible? And that doesn't necessarily take into consideration the real actor's body type. It becomes a difficult challenge, and I think that a lot of the stuff that we try to do is just make a really amazing looking costume.
Initially, when Captain America becomes Captain America, he's not released to go off and fight right away. He's used kind of as a propaganda tool. He's in this very silly Captain America costume, you know, it's tights.
When you sit down and really step back and look at the Cap costume in the comic books, it's not a real practical costume to try to do. Like, the two things that people always allude to are these bell-bottom pirate boots, which were there for years, and the wings that are on the cowl, and they don't work.
One of the things that suit was particularly interesting for the Marvel guys was to try and actually get a full-on version of Captain America on screen.
Finally got everything I wanted. And I'm wearing tights.
Cap is more than just the red, white, and blue of the United States. He represents sort of the strength going into battle and sort of a confidence of winning, of being on the right side of that conflict.
When we get to the final suit, you do have the stripes, you do have the red, white, and blue, but there are, subtle modulations to try and make it feel real.
That went through a lot of different, stages. Obviously, there's a lot of people involved in making the suit who worked very hard on it, and I would just kind of come in every couple weeks and try a new outfit on, and they would poke and prod and measure and cut, and I'd kind of stay out of it, and then finally they got it where they wanted it, and I think it looks fantastic.
And while off-screen, Marvel's design team was constructing Cap's shield. On-screen, Steve Rogers got some assistance from Howard Stark.
I took the liberty of coming up with some options. This one's fun. She's been fitted with electrical relays that allow you to...
What about this one?
No, that's just a prototype.
What's it made of?
Vibranium. Vibranium is stronger than steel, but 3/4 the weight, which makes it very good in battle.
What do you think?
I think it works.
Makes a bullet feel like a cotton ball. And I invented that.
Dominic did a great job of feeling like, oh, that seems like the loins from which Tony sprung. So that was really satisfying.
As you look closer, you do see that there's bigger ideas at work here. When you see things like Super Soldier Program, suddenly you begin to understand how our whole universe came together and how things like Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Incredible Hulk and Iron Man can exist in this world.
Almost everything that the military does in the Marvel Universe after that is an attempt to recreate the super soldier. We've already seen in the Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner, Emil Blonsky turning into the Hulk, turning into the Abomination. Those were all attempts at replicating what Steve Rogers was. General Ross and Emil Blonsky have a discussion about the super soldier program.
In WW2, they initiated a sub-program for biotech force enhancement.
Yeah, super soldier. Some people, Howard Stark, believe that technology and weaponry and armor is the way to outfit troops. There was another program that believed biology was the way to enhance it. It worked with Steve, hasn't worked since then. And is that because they didn't get the formula right, or is that because there was something inherently special in Steve Rogers that made it work?
The serum amplifies everything that is inside, so good becomes great, bad becomes worse. This is why you were chosen. Because a strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion.
When we were developing the story for Captain America, we had to use his most iconic villain, the Red Skull.
We first meet him, he's hunting down this thing called the Tesseract, or the Cube. He's interested in tapping into this other life force that has its origins in Norse mythology.
The Tesseract was the jewel of Odin's treasure room.
As we started working on it, we started realizing that it could play across other films as well. We knew that it had cosmic origins, and the only cosmic element that we've introduced this far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Thor, is Asgard, is the Nine Realms. So we started saying, what if that's where it came from? So we added sort of a Norse overlay mythology to it to suggest where it came from, how it got here.
Yggdrasil, tree of the world.
Which is where it ties in with the Thor film as well.
Legend tells us one thing, history another. But every now and then we find something that belongs to both.
And as Loki finds his way to Earth in the beginning of the Avengers movie, that would be a hell of an artifact for him to go after and find.
Well, I guess that's worth a look. Well, I guess that's worth a look.
We've ordered the release dates of these movies on purpose. And Captain America flows directly into the Avengers. And it's one of the reasons why the Cap movie is period, is this side of the Marvel universe that we haven't seen before, leading to a sacrifice and to a noble act on Steve's part that causes him to be lost.
Sir.
Take us to the next grid point.
But there's no trace of wreckage.
Just keep looking.
And we soon find him, which is what takes us into modern day with the Avengers.
We thought it best to break it to you slowly.
Break what?
You've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years.
What is so great about the Avengers comics is not that it's just a team of superheroes. There are a lot of teams of superheroes. What's great about the Avengers is that they were superheroes in their own comics, in their own mythology that you already knew, that you'd already read, that you're already fans of, and they're all coming together under one title. That's what was brilliant about it. That was so exciting about it. And we wanted to unveil the movie characters the same way. I mean, that had been a what if, that had been a dream scenario for many, many years. And because Iron Man worked and was so successful, they said, what do you have next? You want to do it like that? Great, do that. And we said, holy mackerel, this is going to happen.
In 2010, Marvel went to Comic-Con to unveil to the fans a first look at footage of Thor and Captain America. But fans had no idea what else Marvel was about to reveal.
Do you mind staying a few more minutes for just a second? There is one more thing.
And there came a day unlike any other, when Earth's mightiest heroes found themselves united against a common threat. To fight the foes no single superhero could withstand. On that day, the Avengers were born.
When they walk out, it's going to be the first time they've ever all stood in one place.
Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury.
It is my great pleasure to introduce my right-hand man, Agent Coulson, Clark Gregg. My right-hand woman, you know her as Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. The God of Thunder, Chris Hemsworth. The first Avenger, Captain America, Chris Evans. You know him as Tony Stark. He is Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.
Playing Clint Barton in the role of Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner. Bruce Banner, Mark Ruffalo. Our director, Joss Whedon.
This cast is more than I could ever have dreamed of working with. My dream team. This is the Avengers.
Casting was enthusiastically supported by excited fans, and production was finally ready to begin. After years of planning and the release of 5 separate feature films, Marvel now had the opportunity and the pressure to go along with it to deliver the epic film that movie audiences have been longing for.
Marvel Studios is going to take all of their top superheroes and they're going to put them all together in the Avengers. That's the most ambitious movie I've ever seen.
We have a new challenge with the Avengers that we hadn't had before.
not only do we have comic books, we now have movies that people fall in love with. We got to look back at Iron Man 1, we got to look at Iron Man 2, we got to look at Hulk, we got to look at Thor, we got to look at Captain America, and let's see what we've established, how our own filmmaking can inform the storytelling that we're going to do on this film. So it makes for a unique challenge when putting Avengers together, because it's really, how do we pay off this cinematic universe that we've established? How do we give fans of the movies what they want while still honoring fans of the comics and giving them what they want as well?
With a film as massive as The Avengers, Marvel knew they had to find the right director. Joss Whedon, who had created such cult hits as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Firefly, had the perfect DNA for the job.
What Joss is better at than almost anyone I've ever worked with, Joss is the first pure writer-director that we've had on one of our Marvel Studios films, is looking at the big picture, is looking at setting, and sowing seeds that are going to grow at a certain point, setups and payoffs. He constantly sees the big picture.
He wrote the script. Reading that first draft, I was blown away.
With Joss, we have a guy who is capable of a real-world tone and of incredible humor. So as a result, you get a script that works from a tone level and has terrific humor in it. And that's really fun because Joss is a guy who wrote the stuff, he believes in it, and he can really stand there and point to it and say, this is what my intention was. My intention was to bring the humor, to keep the real-world tone, and to bring it all together. And I think the actors can respond to that and go, I'm on board.
That happens. You look around, and then, you know what? I will give you a position to look up. See where the trapeze is? Yes. Look up, and that'll take you. That's the guy. That's the thunder guy.
We're talking about a more complex piece of machinery here, trying to interface these characters to where they all make sense, all have arcs, and nobody has to do too much heavy lifting, though everybody gets their day in the sun.
What a massive challenge. Impossible, really, in so many ways, to really assemble all these characters that normally are number one to carry that movie.
The only thing I really had to worry about was making these people matter to the audience. The only way you can approach anything is through the relationship to the character. Do the people care?
We're casting personas that have already been proven to work when you put them all together. Tony Stark, Hulk, Thor, Cap, they're such different personalities, right? So you cast the best person for those personalities, you do your job right, when you put them together, it's going to be as fun as it is in the comics.
For movie audiences, most of the Avengers will look familiar, having met the characters in previous Marvel movies. However, one member of the team may not be as recognizable.
The idea of using Hawkeye came from Marvel, who had said they wanted Hawkeye on the team because he was a fan favorite.
Hawkeye swept into the Marvel Universe in 1964, with an appearance in the comic Tales of Suspense. The character, also known as Clint Barton, was first introduced as a reluctant villain. In just over a year, though, Hawkeye would seek redemption and fight crime alongside the rest of the Avengers. Filmmakers cast Jeremy Renner in the role, making his first appearance in a cameo in Thor.
I need eyes up high.
You want me to slow him down, sir? Or are you sending in more guys for him to beat up?
We have a guy who is a master assassin. He's very, very skilled. He's probably off his rocker a little bit. He's a little bit nuts. He's a little bit crazy, but he's good at his job.
But he's fascinating. I mean, he's preternatural with the bow and arrow. He can just do anything.
He's a lone wolf kind of guy anyway. Not really a team player. I think he kind of does his own thing, you know?
Jeremy, as an actor, I think, brings a wry, brooding, sarcastic, devil-may-care attitude to the character, and that's just part of his personality coming through. And that's what makes the casting so inspired, is that Jeremy has that kind of rogue quality, and that's what makes him so much fun to watch.
You think you can hold him off?
Captain, it'd be my genuine pleasure.
In addition to new characters, the filmmakers decided to give the Hulk a makeover, casting actor Mark Ruffalo in the iconic role.
I'd always felt that Mark was the guy to play Bruce Banner because there's something immensely introspective and affable about the guy.
It's good to meet you, Dr. Banner. Your work on anti-electron collisions is unparalleled, and I'm a huge fan of the way you lose control and turn into an enormous green rage monster.
Thanks. This idea of bringing like this darker, a different kind of more humanistic, moving Hulk was really exciting and compelling.
Filmmakers also used cutting-edge technology that gave Ruffalo the chance to leave his imprint on the character.
Before, they've always been a CGI creature that very much was a CGI creature. But now with the motion capture technology that we have, You know, we're building every expression and movement that the Hulk does off of Mark.
It's a real creature, you know, it's very human. There's a sense of humor there. There's an ability to communicate. And he's dangerous, incredibly dangerous. He's a wild animal.
And the Hulk wasn't the only hero getting a new look.
We weren't looking to do like X-Men, solidifying them through certain design choices to feel as a unified team. They're not a unified team for much of the film. That's kind of the point of the Avengers. You know, we did do things like decide, you know what, when Thor's on the helicarrier and when he's standing next to people that are relatively in normal costumes, we're gonna take off his cape, we're gonna take off his sleeves, we're gonna take off his outer armor point. So he's still very much this Asgardian god standing amongst them, but isn't, you know, standing over them like a statue.
No one told me it wasn't a fancy dress. This is embarrassing.
When I first met Joss about the film, he goes, there's a couple of things I want to change. I want to make the hammer big, just like 10-15%. So the hammer's bigger. It's a slightly different design. I think it looks prettier. Well, pretty is the wrong word. It looks, yeah, it looks, there's a bit of class to it, you know? There is. It's not quite as rugged as the other one.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Bringing Captain America into the modern day, he's going to have a new suit, a new outfit that S.H.I.E.L.D. has designed for him. Clearly, S.H.I.E.L.D. loved this notion of having Captain America back, and they wanted a big, bright red, white, and blue costume to go along with it.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
It's a different uniform. It obviously is a bit more sleek. The first uniform had to look not only period, but somewhat utilitarian. It's wartime, so it has to look like it would function on a battlefield. This one just looks a little bit more modern and slick, and it's, on a personal level, it's incredibly more mobile. It's, you know, it's much nicer to get in and out of.
And Iron Man, of course, working on his suits, that color scheme is pretty well defined by now. His suit always evolves. He's always upgrading it. He's always coming up with new ideas and new gadgets for it. And everybody knows what color Hulk is. So we're not messing with that formula. We're taking the formula, which has worked for so long in one medium, and trying to do as good a job as possible bringing it up to that big silver screen.
The thing about The Avengers is it's a story of people who really have no business being in the same movie. Sort of the glory of The Avengers is the dissonance you get between the Hulk and Thor and Captain America and Iron Man and Black Widow and Hawkeye. These guys are going to come up against each other. They're not going to get along. And when you don't get along with the Hulk, you don't usually talk it out.
It's dangerous.
For Joss Whedon, capturing the Avengers' dysfunctional dynamic on film was no easy task.
This is the day that I have dreaded the most since I wrote the script. I have all of the principal characters except for Jeremy Renner. I have 1 through 6 on the call sheet, all in the same room, all talking over each other. Writing the scene was horrifically difficult, but more importantly, shooting it seems next to impossible, except that everybody is so dialed in. They're doing so well that nobody's noticed that I have no idea where to put the camera or what actually is going on.
Excuse me, do we come to your planet and blow stuff up?
Good. No, that's good.
It's not like the Avengers come together and it's like a big party and we all love each other.
You're not going alone. You gonna stop me?
Put on the suit. Let's find out.
I'm not afraid to hit an old man.
Put on the suit.
It's like everybody's fighting and hating and making fun of each other.
Man, I feel like there'd be like a little improv on the ground there. Like, I put on like an animal mask and we start really saying how we felt about each other. Then we suit up.
It's like the most dysfunctional family you'd ever meet. They come into this group and think, we don't fit together, you know?
You have all of these different egos and personalities trying to come together to serve something greater than ourselves.
Now, they're all incredibly powerful, but because of their abilities and their power, they're very alone as well.
You speak of control, yet you cause chaos.
This is MO, isn't it? I mean, what are we, a team? No. We're a chemical mixture that makes chaos. We're a time bomb.
For the Avengers to come together, you need a threat that is very, very big. And you need a threat that is incredibly destructive. And you need to cause mayhem that makes the audience go, how are they ever going to stop that?
Today we blew up the whole world. I don't remember writing anything quite as big as what we just shot. I don't think anybody's left alive, including the Avengers, so that might turn out to be a problem later on.
We blew up 15 cars. We had 21 explosions, 30 to 40 stunt people, 350 extras, I mean, if that doesn't get your blood going, then nothing will.
You see this? Seeing, still working on believing.
I think what makes this film stand out is the grounded nature with which Joss has infused this film. In my mind, a throwback to what people loved in Iron Man, the original. It's everything that Joss loves about sci-fi, which is being able to escape in this otherworldly reality, but have it still be heartfelt and sincere.
This is Loki. This is monsters and magic and nothing we were ever trained for.
There is a lot of depth to this movie, but it's such a historic story of like coming together and like fighting the bad guy.
What are you asking me to do? I'm asking, what are you prepared to do?
It looks awesome. You have superheroes flying through buildings and risk factor goes up. So to see the Avengers battling it out in the streets of New York is pretty epic.
The power surrounding the cube is impenetrable.
Thor's right. We got to deal with these guys.
How do we do this?
As a team.
Marvel's The Avengers premiered on April 11th, 2012. An intense journey was about to pay off.
The movie's finished. People are about to see the movie. What started as Stan Lee, 50 years ago, 45 years ago, coming up with this idea to put all the heroes in one story, and what continued about 6 or 7 years ago with 3 or 4 of us in a room saying, wouldn't it be cool if? And now here it is. It's pretty amazing.
I remember when we were all huddled around an Italian dinner table waiting for the numbers to come in on the first Iron Man. And my take back in the day with John and with Kevin and Jeremy and everybody was always, well, let's see how far we can go with that. And then we had a bunch of fun doing the second one. And this time I feel like all 3 of the avenues that have been explored so far with Cap, Thor, and Tony have all worked in and of themselves separately. So that's more than enough to imagine that putting us together should be really exciting.
Well, the real diehard fans, and like the Comic-Con folk and all that, of which I'm kind of one, honorary one, have been wondering and imagining if something like the Avengers would ever happen. So, they get their wish this year.
That is when it all makes it worthwhile. All that hard work, when you hear the laughter and the clapping or the wow or the sadness, you feel it. You can actually feel it in the theater. And that for me is everything.
If we could create that for any generation or any kid when they go see that movie and you go, wow, that was cool.
We really put a lot into this. We work really hard to give the audience the best experience possible. It's truly a remarkable feeling.
The idea that these 6 years have all paid off and being here tonight on Hollywood Boulevard at the El Capitan with the entire cast of the Avengers, and we're finally making the movie and we're finally getting to show it to the world, the most exciting thing in the world.
So it's been going on for 6 years now, obviously. We've got Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America. These are all chapters in a book, in a kind of giant epic novel, pop culture mythology that's very American, very unusual, and this is where it all pays off.
We're all just stewards of these characters, which is amazing. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. This is the culmination of many, many years of work for us at Marvel Studios. But who knows what will happen, as we go off into the future.
Got it! Cinema history. There we go.
Marvel had a very clear idea of the kind of spectacle that they wanted, which was great for me because then I had something to build off of, and the only thing I was interested in building was, well, how do we get there? How does that action tell us something about the characters we didn't know, so it's not just a checklist. Part of the mission statement of the Avengers was to be iconic but not bash it over the head. because, you know, like Iron Man, you want to keep it grounded somewhat.
That grounded tone is something that we try to apply across the movie. And so when it came to Avengers, the thing about tone was, let's keep it real, let's keep it grounded. Let's see what would happen if we put all these people together and this situation really occurred. And I think that's why the opening sequence, this big research facility exploding, I think it's really important that we see it really collapse and that it has a real world implication, and that really Fury's shaken to the core by it.
Coulson, get back to base.
This is a level 7.
As of right now, we are at war.
The NASA facility in Cleveland was a spectacular location. We wanted a location that you can believe is a mile underground that had very impressive architecture to reveal our villain. When they found this location, we looked at that and we said, wow, we have to shoot here.
This is really a one-of-a-kind, amazing facility. It's the largest space simulation facility in the world. What we're standing in here is the vacuum chamber. This is where we simulate those conditions in space. And in space, you have no air. It's just a vacuum. So we can pull all the air out of this chamber and simulate those conditions. And being a chamber of this size, as you can see, 122 feet tall and 100-foot diameter, it's really a magnificent sight.
Something like this isn't really something you can build. It gives the movie great scope. It's one of the loveliest and actually sexiest places we've shot in. Every shot feels enormously epic, which is a good way to start.
The technology of S.H.I.E.L.D., which up to this point has been a few nifty gadgets, but mainly a lot of sedans and futuristic-looking cars and things like that. Well, in this movie, we introduce what comic fans always sort of thought might be just out of frame or just above the clouds in some of the other films, the helicarrier.
It's an aircraft carrier / space shuttle of some kind. It goes like every different level. You see us like disappearing into the clouds. It's impossible to trace. It is S.H.I.E.L.D. on the fly, and it's probably going to blow some fanboys' minds. I don't think they'll ever recover.
It was part of the bargain with Marvel right away. They wanted the helicarrier, and I wasn't about to say no. It looks amazing. When it was first designed in the 60s, it had little propellers. Since then, they invented science, and we realized that might not actually stay up. You know, so always the idea was this floating fortress. And we talked a lot about, you know, how do we make it work? We went to a more traditional aircraft carrier design, partially because, you know, in the comics, it's very bottom heavy. It looks like this enormous glass palace that's, you just couldn't stay up. And, you know, the streamlined design that the guys came up with was beautiful, but also you could just buy it. It was towing the line between reality and fantasy.
The journey to how that idea of the helicarrier became the helicarrier that's in the movie has been really interesting. It was kind of late in the process of the story development where we said, you know what, we should see the helicarrier take off out of the water.
We shot it on a parking lot in Albuquerque for all the scenes that has Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett and Chris. Pretty much that's all that is real. There's a few people walking around, there's a couple of trucks, there's I think 1 or 2 planes are real, but everything else is completely digital. It was designed so that the reflection and the refractions that we were getting was big enough to give us some bounds so that we could actually recreate it and feel that you were in a takeoff area of some sort of carrier in the water, but nobody really knows until it takes off that it's actually a flying ship.
You need the audience to experience it with Steve and Bruce, who really are, more than anybody else on the team, audience identification figures. To experience with them both the magnificence and the absurdity of this thing is taking off or flying. And that sequence became actually a very important part of the emotional journey of the thing.
That is beautiful imagery. That is actually beautiful imagery. It really is.
When Captain America and Bruce Banner walk onto the helicarrier for the first time, you can see it in their eyes. They're impressed. I mean, everyone who walked onto the set was impressed. So you bring them onto the set for the first time, it is truly a wonder.
I'm really looking forward to all aspects of shooting in here. It's such a beautiful place to explore photographically. All sorts of lovely foreground detail that James Chinland, the designer, has given us. So, I mean, it's a whole panoply of angles. I mean, I'm in options paralysis where we're like going, my God, every angle is a good one.
Just going, you know, my relationship to Jeremy to sort of hold that relationship.
When the action really ramps up and we can really start working with dynamic camera moves in here, which will allow us to track over and around all these consoles and create a sense of movement and dynamism.
It's a pretty awesome set to have my own place of power
where I actually control the ship, control everything that happens on it. It's a pretty great feeling. It gives you a sense of power and the sense of urgency and busyness that a big ship like that would have. The fact that we could get all the superheroes together and come there is pretty impressive in itself.
We get into a situation like this again, what happens then?
They'll come back.
I write for visual moments, particularly something like this. When these guys create something where you see the team together, or you see someone in the environment, or you see the actor doing the action, everybody on board suddenly is seeing either what I saw or what I'm really glad they saw. You see any of these things realized, and you go, oh, it looks awesome.
I think it's the grounded nature with which Joss has infused this film that is, in my mind, a throwback to what people loved in Iron Man. Joss was just dedicated to seeing that through.
In the end, I think when the film goer sees the final product, they appreciate it just as much as we do.
That's what makes it ultimately much more rewarding. When Marvel started with Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., they made a statement, boom, we care about the acting, we care about the characters, we're gonna take you on that journey with them and really let them roll.
I was saying, dude, where's my franchise? I had a feeling that given the opportunity, I could at least do as well as all the other schmucks, and here we are.
Robert, he's kind of like the leader of the band. He's the guy who just wants to take things in hand and make everybody's comfortable, bring in the new guys, you know, bring it all together and sort of be at the center of it. And he does it beautifully.
He started it all. He's kind of the godfather of the Avengers in a sense, you know?
He was the first person I called when they offered it to me. I knew in his presence I'd be in really good hands.
I'm a huge fan of the way you lose control and turn into a giant green rage monster.
I remember watching Iron Man, and I was doing a television job in Sweden, and I absolutely loved it. And cut to 3 years later, and I'm in a scene with Iron Man. I'm a huge tennis fan, and kept saying it's like playing tennis with Roger Federer, in that he makes you look good.
All right, everybody go home.
Chris Hemsworth walks in the room like Thor, because he's 9 feet tall, and he's gorgeous, and he's like, I'm Thor, I'm Australian, everything is good.
No one told me it wasn't a fancy dress. This is embarrassing.
I'd seen the film Thor, but I had never seen him in person with the whole shebang, and you know, you're just like, damn, the God of Thunder. And you see that, and you're like, man, now this is really cool. Now this outfit I'm wearing actually fits.
There's such a freedom that we have because we had this experience together, and not just of being in the film, but of kind of seeing the film into the world. And, you know, it was the first, really the hugest thing that we'd ever done. And he's just a fantastic actor, and he's so committed. If you like each other and respect each other, and if you trust each other, you can make each other better. And I think Chris Hemsworth makes me better, and I hope he'd say the same of me.
Chris Evans has risen to the forefront of Steve Rogers. If you look at Chris Evans, you forget any role he's ever played before, and all you can see is Steve Rogers.
With Captain America, it's a whole new ballgame because it's a whole new era, and he really did an amazing job.
Running the lives of everyone on this ship isn't funny. No offense, Doc.
It's all right. I wouldn't have come on board if I couldn't handle pointing things.
Working with Evans is very cool. I'm wildly impressed with him.
Hulk. Smash.
The Hulk. Mark Ruffalo was my first choice. I had a list. It was very short. His name was at the top. As Banner, he's very vulnerable, he's very funny, he's very loose, but there's this coiled element. It's a wonderful performance.
With Mark Ruffalo, I have someone who I would be happy to do every scene with for the rest of my life.
Damn straight.
Everything that he does when you see him work is almost like this completely unplanned and perfectly inspired accident. I don't know how to describe it any other way.
Did I look like I knew how to ride a bike?
It's just brilliant to watch him and brilliant to act with him because you never know what's gonna come from him, and watching him transform into Hulk is painful. It's not the way that we are used to seeing it where somebody just kind of grows into this bigger thing. It's like something like a beast has taken over him.
You know, we're building every expression and movement that the Hulk does off of Mark.
It's their mind teeth. They use my teeth.
Scarlett Johansson is a Black Widow, and her character is a particularly fun one to have because she has a darkness that the others don't really share.
She's one of those rare people who just says whatever's on her mind, and I appreciate that in her.
I'm not impressed.
She embraces the toughness of her character. She makes it seem effortless, and that's very difficult to do. And guys always think, I don't care how strong a girl is, she can't knock me out. But she has this bigness of character that allows her to pull off the things that she does.
Just like Budapest all over again.
You and I remember Budapest very differently.
Jeremy, as an actor, I think, brings a wry, brooding, sarcastic, devil-may-care attitude to the character, and that's just part of his personality coming through. And that's what makes the casting so inspired, is that Jeremy has that kind of rogue quality, and that's what makes him so much fun to watch.
Don't laugh and fight, Renner.
Jeremy is great at being in the middle of tense situations and just bringing that extremely dry. This isn't affecting me. It is, but I either won't show it or don't know it. And that's what's so gripping about him. And he's very precise. He can, work like a stuntman, but at the same time, he moves with this extreme precision, which is so perfect for Hawkeye. Kobe had absolute authority. She had just a physical confidence. You don't look at her and go, oh, they cast a beautiful woman as a soldier. You look at her and go, that person fought her way through the ranks.
Sir, the Hulk is gonna rip this place apart.
We brought in 5 actresses. They all read with Sam, a fake scene that I wrote just for the audition, and then she absolutely had a completely different quality than everybody else. And ultimately, I think it came down to, there's a moment where Nick Fury makes Maria Hill point a gun at him in the scene. And for me, it all boiled down to the fact that when she pointed that gun at him, I thought she might shoot him. Even though I had written the scene and she doesn't, I really thought she's gonna take him down.
Maria Hill's obviously manifested by the gorgeous Colby Smulders. Very beautiful boss to have. If she's my boss, like Agent Coulson, I had a little trouble wrapping my head around that. So, I view her as someone who thinks that she's above me, but isn't really.
Agent Phil Coulson, played by Clark Gregg, has been the glue of the Marvel Universe. He is the actor and the character that ties every single film together.
He changed everything around here. He has your action figure. Oh, he does? Yes, he does.
Sometimes someone comes in and they were supposed to mean this much, and because of their personality and the possibilities, they wind up encompassing this much, and that's Clark. And he plays it so straight, but he's a bit of a tear-up,
He's a combat, of course, logistics of the dance.
Clark is so good at playing the funny with the serious, and he's become kind of a fan favorite.
You like this?
The thing about Sam is I always think that there are 2 of him. He's famous for the sort of bravura, Pulp Fiction, speechifying. This is a guy who can, out-moxie anybody in the room.
He's responsible for everything that happens here, all the good. Everything else is my fault.
But of course, I'm also very much in love with the great well of sadness that he brings. He doesn't oversell when he goes to that place. He's still being Nick Fury, but he's opening up in a way that you don't necessarily expect.
Samuel L. Jackson is a cinematic icon. His voice is familiar to pretty much everyone who's ever watched a movie in the world.
Standing there next to him, I just fell apart. And I was really nervous. He's such a ringer, he hits it every time. And he's just a really generous, fun guy.
In a way, it's his movie. I mean, he is the narrator of this film. You have to give him more than just, pomp or bluster. The film won't sustain. Earth's mightiest heroes, and they are all these extraordinary actors playing these extraordinary characters.
Watching all of them work and the different styles and getting everyone together in one big scene has been really exciting.
The cast is just insane. When do you ever get to see this group of actors come together?
They're some of the greatest actors in the whole world. It's been absolutely amazing.
Filthy, filthy. Fine. Suits me. Fly safe. You gonna have a gag reel on this like Smokey and a Bandit?
Eastbound down, loaded up and trucking. We gonna do what they say can't be done. We've got a long way to go, and it's sure time to get there. I'm eastbound, just watch your bandit run.
Do it again.
No! Coulson! Coulson, no! Oh, God! You are the greatest man I ever knew! You will be avenged! You will be avenged! I will get the Avengers, and you will be avenged, Coulson!
Excellent. The Avengers mascot.
We need a plan of attack.
What need to be locked up somewhere? These people want to take you down. I'm trying to help you.
Wait, right over here?
No, a little bit more this way.
Okay, ready?
Why won't you let me help you?
Why won't you I guess it doesn't really go up as smoothly as I was hoping.
Information I need.
Are you gonna go down right down to there? Yep. Are you crazy?
What? What?
I said for what, mother? Director.
I feel like I'm talking to Captain Kirk or something. Captain, the log. What's the log? What is Star Trek? Is this Star Trek?
No tension, no surprises. No tension, no surprises.
Ow!
Promise a stress-free environment, no tension, no surprises.
Ow! Hey!
Nothing?
Whoa, wait a second. We have to reset a prop.
Well, careful actor on the set.
Sorry. I got it, don't worry. It's okay, it's coming.
I'm not in. I'm actually out.
Sir, I'm afraid he's assisting.
Jarvis, don't ever speak to me once I'm off camera.
Sorry, I made myself laugh.
I had to put one on there for the gag, too.
Dude, you're on your own!
You want to know what went wrong? How this horror, this catastrophe could have been averted.
A lot of people are dead, Agent Hill. Somebody has to answer for that.
A lot of people have to answer for that.
Nick Fury,
That man.
you've filed several reports criticizing Director Fury's actions since you joined S.H.I.E.L.D.
Because he's reckless. We're at war,
and he thinks about superheroes.
The Avengers?
Who would bring those people together and not expect what happened?
You have to understand there are aspects of this incident that are difficult for most people to accept.
Those creatures.
Fury says to me once, "In the time of gods and monsters, what is the worth of a man?" I don't know what he means. And then men are dying all around. Good men, friends, even some heroes.
So it's safe to say mistakes were made in the handling of the incident.
Mistakes. God. That's all there was, a series of astonishing mistakes. And the worst of all,
Agent Hill. Agent Hill.
This is wonderful. The Tesseract has shown me so much. It's more than knowledge, it's truth.
I know. It touches everyone differently.
Take this.
What did it show you, Agent Barton?
My next target? Stick in the mud, he's got no soul. No wonder you chose this tomb to work in.
Well, the Radisson doesn't have 3 levels of lead-lined flooring between S.H.I.E.L.D. and that cube.
I see why Fury chose you to guard it.
You're gonna have to contend with him, sir. As long as he's in the air, I can't pin him down. And he'll be putting together a team.
Are they a threat?
To each other, more than likely. But if Fury can get him on track, and he might, they could throw some noise our way.
You admire Fury.
He's got a clear line of sight.
Is that why you failed to kill him?
It might be. I was disoriented. And I'm not at my best with a gun.
I want to know everything you can tell me about this team of his. I would test their mettle. I weary of scuttling in shadow. I mean to rule this world, not burrow in it.
It's a risk.
Oh, yes.
If you're set on making yourself known, it could be useful.
Tell me what you need.
I need a distraction. An eyeball.
War! With the forces of darkness pressing in from the east, from the west, America heeds the call to fight for freedom. And at the front of the fight, shoulder to shoulder with our battling boys, is Captain America, a product of old-fashioned values and exciting new science. Captain America is the name every Nazi fears. Uncle Adolf's secret new weapons, no match for our man. When tough times turn tougher, when hope's on the ropes, here's the man to knock the Axis on their axis. He's out there fighting for the land that we love, and he won't stop.
Waiting on the big guy?
Ma'am?
Iron Man. A lot of people eat here just to see him fly by.
Right. Maybe another time.
Table's yours as long as you like. Nobody's waiting on it. Plus, we've got free wireless.
Radio?
Ask for her number, you moron.
Director, S.H.I.E.L.D. operates under the World Security Council. We should have been informed of all the details.
The Council's interest in our work has always been about results, not procedure.
Agent Clint Barton is intimate with S.H.I.E.L.D. procedure, I believe. And now we learn he's working with the enemy? A man whose talent appears to be...
Killing. But he didn't kill me. He didn't take the headshot. He's been brainwashed, but I won't write him off. We're on Loki's trail and we're scrambling a response team.
The Avengers.
The Avengers initiative was shut down, Director. It was a volatile concept at the best of times, which this is not.
This is just a response team.
I suggest you make your response rapid. We all know what's at stake.
Yes, we do.
You noticed me? Yeah.
What's the story upstairs? The power surrounding the cube is impenetrable.
Agent Romanoff, would you show Dr. Banner to his laboratory, please?
You're gonna love it, Doc. We got all the toys.
Really? You have a Commodore 64?
I'm not sure.
Oh, you're very young.
Agent Hill, did you tell the Council that Barton had been compromised?
Was that not procedure? Did you tell them who exactly is on your response team?
Doesn't appear that I have to.
So, which one is it?
Sorry?
Are you a big guy that gets all little? Or a little guy that sometimes blows up large?
You know, I'm not even sure.
You got somewhere to go?
Stark Tower. No. Yes.
I'd expect some confusion of the mind, since your body's kind of all over the place. But It has to be one or the other.
I know where I can do the most good, but it's where I can do the most harm.
Well, that's no different than anybody else. Me, I'm here in Jersey, where I can't do much of either. And since I'm not likely to move on from this placement, you may as well pilfer my ride.
I don't know which way to go.
Your mind's already made up, son. The rest of you will follow.
Agent Hill. Agent Hill. You were saying?
Sorry, yes.
You said the worst mistake.
Well, I think we all know who made that. You thought they were a threat. I thought they were a joke. Nick Fury only ever saw them as the Avengers, no matter what he said. If he hadn't seen that, well, Midtown Manhattan would be a smoking crater, for one thing.
That issue is not in question at this time.
It was absolutely a bad idea. The wrong people at the wrong time, and it worked. They came together and they saved us, and it's infuriating. We're trained to believe in a system, not to gamble, not to hope. Nick Fury saw something running under the system, a current, a connection, a truth about what we can do, what they would become. The Avengers were the mistake that saved the world. That's my official statement.
I see.
Oh, and as for the matter that's not in question, where you morons tried to nuke New York, well, that's on the record. As in, we recorded it. We do that. We're S.H.I.E.L.D. So if you're thinking about coming after Nick Fury, ever, think really, really hard.
How'd that go?
Sold you down the river, sir. Should have your job within the month.
Good work. You should maybe ask for a chair.
I'll keep that in mind. Sir, how does it work now? With the Avengers? They've gone their separate ways. So, pretty extremely far.